Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear friends. Happy New Year. And with Islam's and New Year's greetings from our teachers, Kabir Day and Camille Anna, they've asked for me to share a short message from them both with you all. Dear friends, we are well and we are taking a sabbatical for a few months away from home, moving among different places and focusing on some writing projects. Beginning this month, Sunday Zoom gatherings will only be the first Sunday of each month. We intend to join you again in the spring. Meanwhile, we are honored and grateful to invite some respected members of our community to share these Sunday gatherings with you. Warm salams, Kabir and Camille. So with deep gratitude for our teachers, let us move now into a meditation together. In the name of Allah, the infinitely compassionate and the endlessly merciful, we return again to the breath. Following its rise and fall as it enters and leaves our bodies. Noticing how the body expands with each in-breath and the contraction that follows each out-breath. Following closely every inhalation, noticing sensations in the body, any tensions, perhaps changing position just to release these. And noticing that emptying of breath with every exhalation. How the body feels when empty, almost of breath. And that brief pause before we inhale once again. Filling up with this life-giving, sustaining breath. Connecting us moment by moment, breath by breath, with our sustainer, with each other. Allowing the breathing to become slow and steady, and resting in this breath. Bringing our awareness to the center of our being. And with each in-breath, receding into this center. Into the stillness of the heart. following that call to go inward. Resting in the inner sanctuary, that place of intimacy with our Creator. Aware that we are held in divine love, breath by breath, moment by moment. And into this inner center, we might bring the words La ilaha illallah. With La ilaha on every out-breath and illallah on every in-breath. With La ilaha, letting go of what doesn't serve in this moment. And with illallah, aware of our intimate connection with Allah. Just gently on the breath. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. And as we open our eyes, may we keep this remembrance of La ilaha illallah on the breath for as long as we are able, returning to it as often as we remember. Ameen.
Thank you, Fatih. Assalamu alaikum. May this new year be blessed. From the Mevlevi weird. Welcome. Welcome to this new morning and happy new day. And to the two honorable angels who justly record people's deeds, greetings, greetings. May God, exalted is he, she, enliven you. Write this on the first page of our deeds this bright day. I bear witness that there is no divinity other than God. And I bear witness that Muhammad is his servant and messenger. God willing, with this testimony we live, with this testimony we die, and with this testimony we shall be resurrected hereafter. So our new monthly theme is express faith and devotion in practical details and acts of service. Today, this one, would like to share some reflections on learning about iman and the ways to explore how this faith and devotion can manifest. We all have experience navigating the secular postmodern landscape and that we inhabit, its rules and norms, its biases, while at the same time holding as sacred all that we value. With the challenges coming at us in 2022, this is a good time to summon our knowing heart and realign our practice for service in the world. When I was a young adult, being introduced to Islam, Iman, and Ihsan, I began to understand that faith inhabited a domain more vast, more real, and more accessible than the religious dogma and secular doctrine I had experienced in my upbringing. Furthermore, belief, as I then understood it, was quite limiting, and it fell short of the type of spiritual knowledge and inner certainty referenced by the Sufi saints and sages. Once I embraced a Sufi practice, my heart began to open, and my understanding of faith changed to a specific longing to know firsthand about God's love, about attributes and signs and guidance. This realigned my intentions, and it changed the way I interacted with others and with the physical environment. I was introduced to sincerity and its purifying effect in setting and acting upon intention. I found that my sincerity deepened when turning to God and asking for help and forbearance. Taqwa, often translated as God consciousness or God wariness, can seem like an abstract concept, but it is also a lived experience, sometimes through trauma or an intimate encounter with one as a servant before his or her Lord. Or it may simply be the realization that our thoughts, our feelings and intentions, and our actions are known, some would say seen by God. Awareness through taqwa strengthens our primordial bond with the Almighty. In addition to sincerity and taqwa, patience is important to iman. Personally, I found it relatively straightforward to embrace sincerity and taqwa, but patience was elusive. in part because patience is so easily relativized in a fast-paced culture like ours, and the self-deception that is ubiquitous around us. But being one of his 99 names, Al-Sabr teaches us who really is in control. Mevlana has a lot to say about patience. This is from book 2. Patience gains a crown from faith. Where one has no patience, he has no faith. The Prophet said, God has not given faith to anyone in whose nature there is no patience. So our iman, our faith and devotion, rests upon principles such as sincerity, taqwa, and patience. It is a unique capacity given to the heart of a human being to know and to love God with a certainty that surpasses the rational mind. I like to think of it figuratively as a reservoir fed by the spring water of Qatar in the land of paradise, water that is abundant, purifying, restorative, and life-affirming. We depend on it spiritually and for our very existence. God grants us all the access we need to this refreshing water. Our iman is strengthened whenever we draw from this water, and when we turn back to God, realign our will, when we enter into worship and recognize divine love. From Surah Maryam, truly those who are faithful and do righteous deeds, the compassionate will endow them with love. Expressing faith and devotion in practical details and acts of service draws vitality from that reservoir when we make choices to interface with the outer world. Such expression flows from an attentive, open heart, indeed a knowing heart, a heart that's learned to perceive and to discern without distortion or distraction, a heart that sees with what we call situational awareness and then dispatches right action. Our Mevlevi adab is an excellent example of how this is demonstrated. As mentioned in last Sunday's session by Daniel, the Mevlevi practice of Gurushmek, as described by Gulp and Arley, is the practice of seeing and beholding others, be they people or other living creatures, or even inanimate things. In Gurushmek, we stand in our iman, honoring the service of everything in creation, and acknowledging the divine essence of whoever and whatever we behold. This is a moment of reciprocity, an exchange, and an intentional gesture of reverence. In the Mevlevi Sema, we see this manifesting in the exchange of a glance and in the deep bow. There are many ways to bring forth beauty into the world, yet virtuous deeds or good works are often deemed so by their outward appearance or by their results. But our emphasis here is on our living from our place of iman, aspiring to the station of alignment with the reality, al-haq, with sincerity, patience, and taqwa, and love itself, when they're ingrained in our being and expressed in our actions. The Gurushmek reconnects us to our source and blesses our encounter. I've tried experimenting with versions of Gurushmek in some of the practical details of my life. When working with hand tools or when playing a musical instrument, I'll begin with intention, with a bismillah or a momentary prayer, and then end with alhamdulillah, and sometimes a very brief dua of thanksgiving. In a secular humanistic context, I found that the very subtle Gurushmek is not hard to do, but is easy to forget with all the distractions, including one's internal dialogue. Two classic settings are when we enter a conference room for a meeting or when waiting in a slow line at the grocery store. Both are good opportunities for practice, though doing it consistently is challenging. The principles underlying the Guru Shmek are important, however, and this or other practices that build capacity within ourselves to embrace our faith, our iman, in a non-contemplative setting has great value for our own well-being and for the impact in unforeseen circumstances. People are responsive to acts of service, beautiful deeds, and careful attention to detail. When there's an exchange that speaks to reverence, respect, and even holiness, it is often hard to ignore, and it can lead to a positive feedback loop, something helpful in the challenging times we face. Alhamdulillah.
Thank you, Zakiuddin, for your beautiful reflections. Really grateful for this opportunity at this moment, the turn of the new year and opening of a new lunar month, to be reflecting on this particular theme. It feels really potent and helpful. So I really felt drawn actually to take a closer look at this word devotion. Devotion for me is, and I'm sure for us all, it's about a deep love, a sweet love, sometimes a fierce love. And there is loyalty and this suggestion of a intense and very serious commitment, whether it be to a person, an animal, a thing, an ideal, or to the one who created it all, to the divine. And when I was holding this quality of devotion, there were many people that came to heart, both within our community and those who have passed from within our tradition, but the truly living ones. But foremost was Rabia of Basra, Rabia Al-Adawiyah. And maybe that's not surprising. As most of you will know, Rabia lived in the 8th century, a beloved Sufi saint. And she lived a life, as we know, of hardship. She was sold into slavery at a young age. She lost her parents. And then, even when freed from slavery, she lived a life of poverty and not always knowing where the next meal was going to come from. And it seems sometimes not really caring. And through it all, she remained fervently devoted to her Creator, not even caring about heaven or hell. And she's quite famous for speaking about putting out the fires of hell with water and setting fire to heaven so that people will worship God and love God for love and for God's own sake. And so she's this real embodiment of unconditional love. And nightly and daily, she was in her prayers and in her devotions, which takes us to the other meaning of devotion, as in a prayer or an act of service. Indeed, anything we might do, big or small, to which we bring the quality of devotion. And as Zakiuddin was talking about, this is, the practice of Guru Shmek. that we can bring this intentionality and love to all of the details of our life. And to give a taste of Rabia's devotion, I wanted to share some words from her from Camille Anna's book, Women of Sufism. And she writes of Allah, my joy, my hunger, my shelter, my friend, my food for the journey, my journey's end. You are my breath, my hope, my companion, my craving, my abundant wealth. Without you, my life, my love, I would never have wandered across these endless countries. You have poured out so much grace for me, done me so many favors, given me so many gifts. I look everywhere for your love. Then suddenly I am filled with it. O captain of my heart, radiant eye of yearning in my breast, I will never be free from you as long as I live. Be satisfied with me, love, and I am satisfied. So one might think that Rabia's devotedness to Allah increased her devotions, and her devotions increased her devotedness. I want to share also with you a dream that Rabia shared, which relates something of the invisible fruits of one's devotedness. After an all-night vigil, I prayed to God at dawn and slept. In my dream, I saw a tree, green, bright, vast, of indescribable beauty. And on this tree were 3 kinds of fruit, such as I had never seen among all the fruits of this world. They shone like the breasts of maidens, red, white, and yellow. They shone like globes and living suns in the green hollows of the tree. I marveled at them and asked, whose tree is this? A voice replied, this is your tree, sprung from the seed of your prayers. Then I began to walk around it, and as I did so, I counted 18 fruits the color of gold lying on the ground beneath it. I said, it would be better if these fruits hadn't fallen, but were still on the tree. And the voice answered, they would be there still, except for the fact that while you were praying, you kept worrying. Did I remember to add the yeast to the dough? And so they fell, and there they lie. I'm sure we have no difficulty relating to those moments when in prayer we might fall out of presence. And certainly this one knows what that is like. And one might contemplate and ponder what these fruits might be. And Mevlana says that a fine delight is needed for devotions to bear fruit. A kernel is required for a berry to produce a tree. And Rabia knew this delight. She had a heart torn open by love. And she would pray to Allah all night long. And she would say, "Oh Allah, another night is passing away. Another day is rising. Tell me that I have spent the night well so I can be at peace, or that I've wasted it so I can mourn for what is lost. I swear that ever since the first day you brought me back to life, the day you became my friend, I have not slept. And even if you drive me from your door, I swear again that we will never be separated. because you are alive in my heart. So Allah is alive in Rabia's heart. And Mevlana says, everyone who delights in some act of devotion can't bear to miss it, even for a short while. That disappointment and grief are as 100 prayers. What is ritual prayer compared with the glow of humble longing? Again, delight. Those who delight in some acts of devotion, they have this glow of humble longing. Now, I can't say that I always knew delight in the ritual prayer, having been brought up to pray my 5 prayers quite diligently, but without much heart or presence, and always feeling them as a bit of an obstacle to what I really wanted to do. You know, that delight really wasn't there. And I felt really quite disconnected from those prayers that were very much a part of what I had grown up with. But somewhere along the way on this path, something changed. And maybe I was thinking, maybe it was those pilgrimages to Turkey with Dede and Anna, where we would wake early to offer Fajr prayers together at Shams's mosque in Konya. In the early hours of the morning, in the stillness, in the coolness of the morning air, walking the quiet streets quietly. And with this sense that one was going for an illicit meeting with one's beloved, a secret meeting with one's true love. And one would arrive, and the beloved accepted us with our sleep-tousled hair and bleary eyes, particularly in my case, having just fallen out of bed and fallen out of the hotel and trundled along the street with expectation. And then that sweetness of that prostration after being up at that time of the day. Perhaps those mornings sowed the seeds of humble longing in this heart. Or maybe it was the short solitary retreats in Ramadan, rare, but sometimes I would find time for these. And sometimes I would stay awake from Isha until the dawn, whispering the name of the beloved into the darkness of the night. Watching the sky, just watching the sky as it would slowly change color. Watching the light enter. Busy in reciting prayers and just watchful. And then hearing the birds begin to sing their own zikr. Maybe it was the sweetness of those moments, alone with the alone, everybody else asleep, and just me, and just Allah. So my experience has been that Allah gives you a taste of this delight, a taste of what it is to be near him or her. And of course, we are always near him or her, but it's just that my own awareness of that is not always there. And this is not to say at all that there are not times when my devotions are lacking and are scant, because they can be. But what I always find is that, like a boomerang, and I couldn't think of a better simile, like a boomerang, I always come back to the thrower. And I'm always in his, her hands. And then when I finally return to my prayer, especially salat after a period of absence, and I put my head down in prostration and breathe, that I feel I have returned home. And I feel the sweetness of that embrace. And I'm reminded of what I've been missing. And this morning, as I was listening to the nay, thinking about today, I kind of called upon Rabi'a because I felt I'm going to talk about her. I need to know her some more. So I closed my eyes and I imagined us both whirling together. And I think my intention for this month is really to keep Rabi'a close so that I might take something from her, absorb something of her delight in devotion. And in Surah Ra'd, in the Quran, it is said, she guides to him herself all who turn to him her, those who have faith and those whose hearts find satisfaction in the remembrance of God. Truly, in the remembrance of God, hearts find tranquility. And so I'm reminded that I need this devotion. I need it. And I also need the spiritual strength that comes from increasing our devotion. And Zakiuddin mentioned the challenges of our times. And Mevlana says, the spiritual warrior first gives away his bread, but when the light of devotion strikes upon him, he gives away his life. So a prayer for us, for me, that increasing my devotion, that increasing of our unconditional love, may we become more rooted in divine love and our hearts open to the light of inner guidance. May we be guided to express our faith and devotion in all that we do, rooted in loyalty, love, and commitment to truth. Amen. And time for me to share with you a poem, another one, which speaks to some of what we've been sharing today. It was offered to Zakiuddin and I by Khadim Jan, and it felt appropriate to share it with you. It's by Mary Oliver, the American poet, and many of you will know her and know that her work is inspired by nature and stems from her lifelong passion of solitary walks in the wild. And Khadim Jan described this poem as expressing Wahdatul Wujud, and I think you'll see why. For me, it feels apt in many ways, affirming those lines from the Quran, wherever you turn, there is the face of God. And Rabi'a sees the divine in all things. And this seeing allows us to bring a different quality to our interactions. And so let's open our hearts to receive the wisdom coming to us from many directions. I don't know who God is exactly, but I'll tell you this. I was sitting in the river named Clarion on a water-splashed stone, and all afternoon I listened to the voices of the river talking. Whenever the water struck a stone, it had something to say, and the water itself, and even the mosses trailing under the water. And slowly, very slowly, it became clear to me what they were saying. Said the river, I am part of holiness. And I too, said the stone. And I too, whispered the moss beneath the water. I'd been to the river before a few times, Don't blame the river that nothing happened quickly. You don't hear such voices in an hour or a day. You don't hear them at all if selfhood has stuffed your ears. And it's difficult to hear anything anyway through all the traffic, the ambition. If God exists, he isn't just butter and good luck. He's also the tick that killed my wonderful dog Luke. Said the river, imagine everything you can imagine, then keep on going. Imagine how the lily, who may also be a part of God, would sing to you if it could sing, if you would pause to hear it. And how are you so certain anyway that it doesn't sing? If God exists, he isn't just churches and mathematics. He's the forest, he's the desert. He's the ice caps that are dying. He's the ghetto and the museum of fine arts. He's Van Gogh and Allen Ginsberg and Robert Motherwell. He's the many desperate hands cleaning and preparing their weapons. He's every one of us potentially. The leaf of grass, the genius, the politician, the poet. And if this is true, isn't it something very important? Yes, it could be that I am a tiny piece of God, and each of you too, or at least of his intention and his hope, which is a delight beyond measure. I don't know how you get to suspect such an idea. I only know that the river kept singing. It wasn't a persuasion. It was all the river's own constant joy, which was better by far than a lecture, which was comfortable, exciting, unforgettable. Of course, for each of us, there is the daily life. Let us live it, gesture by gesture. When we cut the right melon, should we not give it thanks? And should we not thank the knife also? We do not live in a simple world. There was someone I loved who grew old and ill. One by one, I watched the fires go out. There was nothing I could do except to remember that we receive, then we give back. My dog Luke lies in a grave in the forest. She is given back. But the River Clarion still flows from wherever it comes from to wherever it has been told to go. I pray for the desperate earth. I pray for the desperate world. I do the little each person can do. It isn't much. Sometimes the river murmurs. Sometimes it raves. Along its shores were, may I say, very intense cardinal flowers, and trees and birds that have wings to uphold them for heaven's sake, the lucky ones. They have such deep natures. They are so happily obedient. While I sit here in a house filled with books, ideas, doubts, hesitations, and still press deep into my mind, the river keeps coming, touching me, passing by on its long journey, its pale, infallible voice, singing.
It's a beautiful, beautiful poem. Thank you for reading it, Fati. So I hear many things about our our theme this month in this poem. Foremost being the words, let us live it, gesture by gesture. When we cut the right melon, should we not give it thanks? And should we not thank the knife also? We do not live in a simple world.
Yes, Beautiful, Zakiuddin. And I feel that, where she speaks of he's every one of us potentially, the genius, the politician, the poet. Someone asked me the other day whether God is in the boardrooms of Big Pharma. So something. But there is such a sweetness and this real true seeing of Allah.
There's also something very beautiful that she introduces halfway through the poem about giving back. It's there's nothing I could do with regards to the losses that are woven into this, and yet the exception is to remember that we receive and then we give back. So there's the reciprocity that I was inspired by this. The reciprocity it's built into the world we live in.
Yes. Mm.
And the prayer in the next stanza, I pray for the desperate world. I pray for the desperate earth. I do the little each person can do. It isn't much. And the humility of that, it echoes. I think this is good for us to hear right now.
Yes. Yes, sometimes things can feel very overwhelming. And to remember to do what we can with love.
Yeah.
And just this beautiful reminder that we can be in communion with nature, and that this can be such a source of revelation and such a source of strength.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
So let's turn to our zikr.
Yes.
Al-Fatiha. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabia Al-Adawiyah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladina an'amta alayhim ghayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. Amin. As long as we're in this world, none of us is free of faults, mistakes, sins. May we be forgiven and may we be forgiving. May we know always to turn back. Bismillah, astaghfirullah. 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 Astaghfirullah.
A fine delight is needed for devotions to bear fruit. A kernel is required for a berry to produce a tree.
Everything in existence is the manifestation of a single source of life and being. And we say the words La ilaha illallah to remind us of the unity of being and to remind us not to make idols from our ego's whims and desires. Bismillah, la ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah, 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 illallah,
Everyone who delights in some act of devotion can't bear to miss it, even for a short while. That disappointment and grief are as 100 prayers. What is ritual prayer compared with the glow of humble longing?
God answers all calls made in sincerity and truth. Bismillah, Ya Allah. Allah, 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 Allahu, 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 Allahu.
The spiritual warrior first gives away his bread, and when the light of devotion strikes upon him, he gives away his life.
And now we'll repeat who 7 times.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wattini wazzaytun waturi sinin وهذا البلد الأمين لقد خلقنا الإنسان في أحسن تقويم ثم رددناه أسفل سافلين إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات فلهم أجر غير ممنون فما يكذبك بعد بالدين أليس الله بأحكم الحاكمين.
We give thanks for the light under which we gather. For our peer, Hazreti Mevlana Jalaluddin Rumi, for the generations of seekers and guides who have come before us, and for all those who have been our teachers. We pray for the health and well-being of everyone in this circle, for our families, our children, our children's children and future generations, for our communities, for our friends, and for our planet. And we mention at this time anyone in need of prayer or healing. May Almighty God make our intention and our awareness sound and bring us in readiness to the center of true beginning, and may the light of this circle be received wherever it is needed. By the breath of Mevlana, by the secret of Shamsi Tabriz, by the generosity of Imam Ali, and with the blessings of our unlettered prophet, Muhammad Mustafa, mercy to all the worlds, we say who? Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.